190 years of faith and service to this community and the wider church. We are not only a part of history, we respect history, and we are still creating history. So for that reason, we decided to invite Mr. Bill SAUERS, who is the president of the Greece Historical Society, to come and share a very unique and exciting story about the Manitou Trolley. Bill was hoping to be here this evening, but he doesn't feel well, and out of respect for all of you, he chose to do the presentation by Zoom. So we do have Bill here. Say hello, Bill. Say hello, Bill. Bill.
I barely hear you.
There he is. Three things before we start. First of all is this event is, of course, free, but if you do feel compelled to make a donation, the monies collected this evening will be forwarded to the Greece Historical Society to say thank you for their time. The second thing is, if you have a cell phone, please now take the time to turn it off or put it on silent mode. And the third thing is, we have about 300 cookies and ice cold lemonade and iced tea down in the fellowship hall, which is right where the bathrooms are located. So after this presentation, please join us. And now I would like to introduce Mr. Bill SAUERS, president of the Greece Historical Society and the Manitou Trolley. Can we give him a hand?
Am I on?
You're on. Don't say anything rude.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody. I am very sorry I couldn't join you, but after 4.5 years of being healthy, I finally got COVID. So, thanks to modern medicine, we've got some powerful medicines that make me feel better, but I didn't want anybody to catch what I've got. So, due to COVID, we all learned how to use Zoom. So I hope this works out. So I am Bill SAUERS. I run the Greece Historical Society. There's a photograph of the building. We have been in existence since 1969. We own and maintain that museum on Long Pond Road. We're leased land from the town of Greece. We get no financial support from the town of Greece, so we are strictly a very non-profit organization, but we are chartered by the state education department. So let's tackle our story today. We're going to talk about the Manitou Trolley. This is just a modern graphic. Manitou Trolley ran along the lake from Trolley, Manitou Beach from 1891 to 1925. So I'm going to tell you a little bit, and we're going to run along the track of the trolley and show what it was like back then, and what the areas where the trolley are today. So this is a poster to advertise the trolley. And you notice the words 8 miles of beautiful beach along the shore. And that was the inspiration for the history book of the town of Greece, 8 miles along the shore. And there's the historical marker that's on Long Pond and Edgemere Drive, and a 1960s modern photograph that kind of illustrates where the trolley went along Long Pond, Cranberry Pond, Granite Bay. And here's a couple tickets that go back there. If you notice, this particular poster round trip were 30 cents. Half fare was 20 cents. I don't know how you got that, but the prices had changed every year. And here's some tickets from 1918. Tickets were only 5 cents back then. And this is just a little advertisement opening up of the new Manitou Beach. And there's a little advertisement for us. This is a poster that we sell at our museum. It's a watercolor illustration of the trolley going across Granite Bay, and along with a map of the route. And we also sell a book that we had reprinted. It was written in the 1950s by William Gordon, Jerry Gordon. And I would have had some with me if you wanted to purchase one, but you can always have it in our museum on Sunday afternoons. Okay, all work. The village of Trolley, in Ontario Beach Park, It's the Coney Island of upstate New York, or sometimes called the Coney Island of the West. It drew thousands of visitors at the turn of the last century, and it was served by the New York Central Railroad, which actually owned Ontario Beach. But they can also get there by an electric trolley along Lake Avenue. You might start around in downtown, and this, by the way, was the first electric trolley in New York State. So you might travel past Holy Sepulchre Cemetery. You travel down Lake Avenue past Riverside Cemetery. Go across the bridge near Boxer Street, coming into Shalott, and finally ending up at Shalott. So you would get your ticket at Shalott for the trolley. This particular booth is at the northwest corner of Lake Avenue and Beach Avenue. This particular office was built after a fire at the Bartholomew Hotel in 1914, and we have no photographs of an earlier ticket office. So before we take a trip on the trolley, let's look at a couple of the scenes. This is one of the very early cars with the open cars and a running board along the side so that the conductors could collect tickets. And here's just a couple miscellaneous views. The bottom right-hand one is one of the earlier cars, and the top left is one of the later cars. And I always look at that later one, and it reminds me exactly of the trolleys or the electric subway that was downtown Rochester, which started about the same time that this one ended. So what we've got to do is show you the route, and the route started at Broadway, which is now Lake Avenue. It headed west, then it turned a little south, then it turned west and south again. So we're going to follow along that route for a while. The red circle there is actually where the power station was that ran the electric or the trolley. And here's the electric power station. Notice on this one, the round trip is 25 cents. But every year these prices change, just like today. And these were, what do you call them? I'm sorry, dump cars. These were used to maintain the tracks, and they also carried sledge from the blast furnace of Shalott. And so that's another story about the blast furnace. This is a view of Beach Avenue looking east towards Lake Avenue. Oh, way in the back, you see the chimneys from the blast furnace, but you can see the tracks on the road. Well, getting back to the trolley line from Beach Avenue, it turned and went along Wilder Terrace. Then it turned again and went west to Veteran Street, which actually used to be called Lake Avenue. And it went behind the Summer Infants Home. That building was demolished, and I show you the picture, and rebuilt in 1915. Now my father actually happened to stay in that building in 1918, as probably flew at that. But it went behind the nursing home. Oh, by the way, that child's home is still there, and for quite some time it was Shorewood's nursing home. And it is still there under new names, the Waterview Heights. There's a picture from back to only a couple of years ago to 1918. But it went behind it, and this is the route where the trolley took behind the Summer Infant Home. And if anybody might recognize that, that's Lakeshore Country Club. They didn't actually go on the property at Lakeshore. In fact, back then it was the summer home of the Greenleaf family. But there is still today, between these two yellow lines right in here, that is the city right-of-way for a future street Hickory Street. It's never built, but that fictitious paper street called Hickory Street is the route of the trolley. Well, got down to the end of that group of homes, and it went back north towards Beach Avenue. Now, a lot of people think it used to go along Beach Avenue, and my thinking is it probably went behind all these homes because there were a lot of rich homes on Beach Avenue where they didn't want a trolley running in their front yard, so it went behind all those houses. Well, it then went by the Lake Ontario Water Company, and here's the view of the building in the late 60s. It was next to the, I'm sorry, lost my train of thought here. It was the site of, next to the outlet of Slater Creek, and this is where it was, and I can superimpose an aerial photo of today. It is the parking lot today, but it is the site of the Slater Creek fishing area. It used to be very popular when RGE had their nice warm water coming out. But we're going to move along to what's called the stops 4 and 5. And this map shows Brickney's Bluff. It was a high sandbar at the end of Dewey Avenue, and sources a lot of trouble with high water and waves. But along the area was the brand new Shoreline subdivision that was just being developed in 1923, just before the trolley ended. But they advertised that it was on the trolley line. And if you look there, there's a cute little sketch of the trolley going along the Shoreline, the new Shoreline subdivision that was being built. Brickney Bluff is an area, you don't see it as much of a bluff anymore today, but if you're in if you're actually in the lake and you look up, this is one of the houses the only house at Brickney Bluff, but it is one of those beautiful houses in town. And by the way, that is designed by Thomas Boyd, who was the first black architect in upstate New York. One of his beautiful houses. But here's some pictures of Brickney Bluff from 1915. These photographs were taken. And everybody a few years ago was complaining about high water and erosion. Well, this has always happened, and it was a tremendous problem back then. So if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, the concrete abutments were built in 1915 to help stabilize the shore and, of course, protect the rail tracks. I went back in 2015, and those concrete abutments are still there. So the legacy of the trolley, parts of it are still today seem to, So we're going to take a look and go along the lake here, and we're going to go by Round Pond, Long Pond, Granbury, Granite Bay. I'm not sure how much you people are familiar, but we'll start out at Beatty Beach. And Beatty Beach had one of the first of the hotels along the route. And this one, Lakeview Hotel, and notice that their proprietor is Adolph Grossman. He keeps the Lakeview Hotel, and here is a photograph of Adolph. But Adolph also had a partner with him that ran the hotel, and that was my great-grandmother, who's in the center of the picture with many of her great-grandchildren. The tall one next to her is my father, who was born in 1910, and he's about 12 in this picture. My father always told me that his grandmother owned the hotel. I got a feeling she probably worked the kitchen and Adolph ran the bar. But, so that hotel stayed along for quite a while. There it is. There's the trestle going over the outlet. Now the outlet is not there anymore. The new outlet for the pond was made by the Yodenbachs in the 1940s when they built their shipbuilding and closed that outlet off. did stay for a while, but when the trolley ended, the little bridge there started to fall apart, so they rebuilt it. This was long before the overpass. But by this time, you can see the hotel has had some additions to it. And here's just another view after the new bridge was built. And by the 1930s, the old hotel with more and more additions looked like this. And keep going up to the 1960s, 70s. Many changed names, but it was the Edgewater Hotel. By 1990, John Geisler, who owned it at the time, just couldn't make it go anymore. It was falling apart. It was old. So it was sold at auction in 1995. And today that area looks like this. Now, moving on to Highland Cottage, which was stop 8, this was run by Thomas Beatty. And you notice there's a little outhouse here. We have one of the company picnics. It was a huge, huge place for company picnics. And this one is 1990. You just notice the clothing that people wore back in the day. They had a major fire in 1932, and it was rebuilt or replaced by this building. I'm not sure if it was torn down or just rebuilt. But you may have remembered it as Scarletta's Party House. They had a pole in front of it for a while. I think it was back to Island Cottage. It got to be a teenage nightclub for a while, much to the demise of the neighborhood. And it was demolished in 2001. There's a notice about the former stop in the Manitou Beach trolley line. Right across the street from that was another hotel that had a major fire in 1961 and burned down. And that hotel was called the Edgewater. It was owned by Stan Malik. After that fire, Stan Malik went back down on the street down east a while, bought that old hotel, and renamed it the Edgewater. So on Exeter Drive, there was 2 separate buildings called the Edgewater, both owned by the same person. So, but this would have been, the trolley would have been right in front of that establishment. And here's that area today. See shelters and charbroil. But right behind that in the swampland is one of the old trolley cars. So if anybody wants to get a canoe or whatever and go investigate this photograph was taken a few years ago. And I don't know how it ever got there, but talk about a legacy of over 100 years that's been sitting in the water. That's where it is. And now the Grove House, which was almost a mile from the trolley, but it's also right now probably the second oldest establishment in the town of Greece. Braddock Tavern is probably a couple years older, but this one has been in continuous use since 1885. It started out as a gentleman's lodge, but because it was so far from the trolley, the motorman had a special signal whistle, and a buggy from the hotel, or gentleman's club we might call it, would go down and pick up the guests from the trolley line. In the lower right is a building a few years ago, with a couple additions and changes and modifications. And today, it's even more. And so now it's a very expensive, very, very good restaurant. New owners just bought it this last spring. And we'll see how they do this year. The legacy of the trolley. And here's just a cute little feature of a pond outlet. A couple girls fishing. After the trolley left, they tore down the bridges, but some of the pylons that held the bridges were left under the water. They figured they wouldn't bother anybody. But in 1978, the water was so low that the support columns for that bridge were still seen. And then, of course, the water got high again, but in 2021, the water level lowered again, and those pylons are still there 100 years after the bridge was demolished. So we'll move along to Crescent Beach. The original Crescent Beach was built by Willis and his wife. And they built a new one in 1910, and that's the one on the top right. It was later owned by Herbert Howe and managed by her son-in-law until 1945. The building was, I'm sorry, I lost my track here. There was a major fire in the building in 1973, and there's a photograph that was saved from the fire and given to us, and by blowing up that photograph, you can see how close the trolley tracks were in front of that building. But Ray Geis purchased the building in 1945 for $22,000, and he decorated the place with objects collected from European trips. Later, when the Geises retired, Joe Perry took it over, but that building was destroyed in a fire in 1973. After the fire, there's just a couple pictures of the old place. And my grandparents, you always dressed up when you went to Crescent Beach. It was a big deal. And here's a napkin that was saved from the place. But it was rebuilt after the fire. They opened a restaurant on Dewey Avenue at Ladder Road for a while, and eventually built this new one in 1985. It closed in 2012, and since 2012, we've been pretty much saying any day now it's going to reopen. But as we know, it wasn't that long ago. The building was saved and sold, and a whole lot of hoopla. We're going to fix it up, and well, like those people seem to have some financial problems, so we don't know what the future of the old Crescent Beach is. But the Berry family that did have it continued in the restaurant business. They opened up an Irish pub in Webster, and in the pub was a couple signs from the old trolley line. And unfortunately, that pub closed a few months ago. So I hope the Berry family at least kept the signs. Yeah, that's closed. And here's just a photograph of Edgemere Drive after the trolley was abandoned. And during the 1930s and Depression era, the roads were improved. So, and here's a couple of the tracks from the railroad trolley in somebody's driveway. This guy has saved them in his yard. So some of these 100-year-old things are still hanging around from the trolley. But not such a good map, but we're going to move along, and we're going to come to Grandview Beach, shown on this map. And notice the location of the Star of the Sea Church and then the Grandview Beach Hotel. The Star of the Sea Church was used by summer visitors at one time by all denominations, and it was built on land owned by the Kleinenses. After mid-20th century additions, it was made into an apartment building. It was made into an apartment building, and it is now completely renovated and a huge individual private home. There's a photograph of the front door of the new home, and here's a photograph of the original church building. And you can notice some of the windows are still in the same place. And it's the only thing left of the old church is those couple windows. So, in 1885, the Kleinenses bought what was called the Old Inn House in the upper left corner. It was an early resort hotel. It was moved back up the outlet so they could build the Grandview Beach Hotel. That's on the lower right. This illustration actually is very old. It's from the 1877 Monroe County History book. It's got a little distorted. I noticed the boat is kind of out of scale. The smoke is blowing to the west. It's just it was the artist's rendition of the area. Back in the hotel had a fountain, and years after the hotel was no longer there, somebody was digging in their yard and found the parts of that fountain and gave it to the Greece Historical Society that we use in our previous rose garden. Roses are no longer there, we still use it as a planter. Again, over 100 years old. Now here's a couple of photographs from the Grandview Beach Hotel. And it was destroyed in 1947 by fire. And one of the Grandview Beach Hotel. Very well known place and very, very well known during Prohibition. But that's another story for another day. And this is getting into the 1920s, but this is a picture in front of the road in front of the Grandview Beach Hotel. But this is what the area looks like today. Not quite as romantic as these old hotels. But down the street, just a little ways, I'm sorry, I'm going to get to that old Inn House that was, I showed you before. In the late 1940s, Mr. Long remodeled it and opened it as a restaurant. In 1950, he built an addition and put a bowling alley on it. And by the 1960s, it had changed hands and became Ames Bowling Alley. The two burned down, but it burned down in 1978. And it was finally, after a fire, it was finally demolished. That building went back to the 1860s. There's just a couple of pictures of it. And by 78, the town said we're going to build a park where this Dan house was. They never really built the park, but it is the field right here is where the Dan house was. And the photograph was taken from what's now Goodwin Park. And Goodwin Park, everybody didn't know her, was named after Gurley Goodwin. And she could be another story we could tell about another day. And just down the road from the Grandview Beach Hotel was this private Grandview Beach Club. It was built in 1902, and it was a private club for the neighbors on Edgewood Drive. They all had shares in the organization. It was used for many purposes, dances, they had pig roasts. It even had church services for a while, and I'm sure during Prohibition it was a fun place to be. But by the 1960s, they ran out of money, and they sold the building to the Amish for the wood. And today, this is what the site looks like. Interestingly enough, though, the sign that you see on the Grandview Beach Club right here, it was found in the next door basement several years later, and it is now hanging in somebody's living room. Somebody bought the house next door and found the sign in the basement. Probably assumed when they were tearing down the house, the neighbor probably said, "Hey, if you guys want the sign, I can use it." That's how it probably was saved. But that sign was put up there in 1909. Now it's still in somebody's house. So we'll move along now to along the trail, and where we're going here. This was kind of a cute little advertisement we found for the Cranberry Pond Beach area. That lots were for sale at Grandview Beach. It's on the Grandview Beach Railroad. We have sandy beaches, good fishing, terms are easy, no saloons at this time. And I keep to think, why would anybody want to live there that there was no saloons? But, you know, no saloons. This is one of the cottages. It was along the lake. And again, you look at how close these tracks are to the building. It doesn't look like it's 5 feet away. And of course, the trolley didn't go 90 miles an hour either, but they were continuous all day long in the summertime. And just a photograph of the trolley. I just always get a kick out of how well dressed people were when they went down to the beach. And this is the trolley tracks at East Manitou, or Braddock Heights. You gotta watch out for that turn though. You don't want to go too fast because we'll have. I don't know how they got it back on the tracks, but those things happen quite a bit, I guess. Now, excuse me, I still got a little cough on my COVID here. This map shows stops 16, 17, and 18. At stop 17 was the Springwater Hotel. At the left of the map is East Manitou Road, and further left is Braddock Heights. And a few weeks ago, somebody who was on Engineer Drive was saying, you know, I live in this house, I have this, I think we were at stop 17, I don't know, she says, but I have a sign, and this is the sign she has hanging in her house, and if you, I had to highlight it better so you could see it, but it's stop 17, and she didn't really know anything about stop 17, but here she was, her house is across the street from what this hotel was, the Springwater Hotel. Notice the hotel still sold Tennessee beer. Okay, this is the cottage of the Milan family at Cranberry Pond near East Manitou. There's her with her child, and you see the tracks and the Springwater Hotel in the background. Again, look at where the cottage is and where the tracks are. East Manitou. We call this Braddock Heights today, but at one time it was called East Manitou. The Stellar Brothers Hotel is interesting because Mr. Odenbach had been evicted from a hotel he had built on Manitou Beach, and then came here to manage this one for 2 years before moving to the city and opening his famous family restaurant at the Peacock Room at the Odenbach's off Roundhouse. Notice here that the 1910 that they got sued there because he was selling liquor on Sunday. By the way, I just found out that I don't know if anybody old enough to remember the Peacock Room, the Odenbach's downtown, that was torn down in the late 30s, and the Dutch mill at Dewey and Stone bought the bar. The bar that was in the Dutch mill until it closed a couple of years ago was the bar for the famous Peacock Room of the Odenbachs. So a later stop moved to Ridge Road, and he bought an old carriage stop. So there he goes. And he bought an old carriage stop on Ridge Road and renamed it to Stretz. The building was, he renamed it and called it the Stretz. We'll remember it, Stretz. And that was demolished in 2013 after being closed for a number of years. Back when the day at Stretz, you could buy 2 lobster tails for $10.95. With the success of the trolley, Braddock Heights subdivision began to develop. But the demise of the trolley also brought a temporary halt to the development. And within only a year or two, they were going into bankruptcy and auctioning off the properties. It's the sketch that somebody gave us of the Braddock Heights area, and in the trolley days. If you you notice on the right, the spit of land that actually still to this day goes across Reading Bay, the number of buildings that were on that spit of land. And here's a photograph of some of the buildings and a hotel that was on that piece of land. In the mid-20s, the high water washed virtually everything away. So today there's nothing on that piece of land. So again, the water kept changing the heights up and down over the years. But that spit of land is today the route of the trolley. Now, this picture is a few years older before the Corps of Engineers got in there. But it was a nice little. There's an aerial photograph of where it is. If you're not familiar with it. It was a lovely little path to take your girl for a walk on. Very, very private. Some call it maybe a lover's lane or whatever. But that's the old path to trolley. But the Corps of Engineers kind of made it wider so they could get the trucks in and built this project out in the bay. The trolley went across Reading Bay, and here's a photograph, two different photographs of the trolley trestle over Reading Bay, and some photographs of it. And if you notice these tracks over here, it was rebuilt almost every other year. It wasn't well built, so it was a maintenance problem all along. But after the trolley was abandoned, the citizens in the area used it as a pedestrian bridge for a couple number of years. But again, there was no finances to maintain it, so it was finally totally lost. A lot of the support structure for that bridge was still there when the Corps of Engineers laid out the inlet to Reading Bay. So we're getting into Manitou Beach area, and here's a 1924 map. You can see where the trolley trestle went across the bay and went across this little spit of land and ended up at this area. Here's the track coming in to the Manitou Beach area, and a postcard. And you can see the trolley sitting over there on the left. And this is the Reese's merry-go-round was in a tent operated by a steam engine. Notice the steam rising through the trees. In the distance is the top of the Manitou Hotel, built in 1888. And the small building on the right is Skinner's Marina. And the trees beyond are the tents of the Colony Club, which is a group that came here every year from Pittsburgh. A small trolley station at the end of the line, the Oderman, Camp Odenbach, and another man. No longer used, the station was moved to another location and enclosed as a cottage and used as a house, but then is no longer there. It disappeared sometime. Nobody knows where it went. Here is the trolley in front of the old Elm Park Hotel, which was owned by Mr. Wiederman and Mr. O'Loughlin. In an earlier picture of the Elm Park Hotel, built in 1892 by Camp Odenbach, and lost to L. Skinner's father in a famous lawsuit after it was discovered that the hotel was on Skinner's land. The property line ran through a tree that had been marked by a surveyor's stake in the 1800s. The mark became visible only after an old elm tree was cut down, and that gave Skinner the name of the new hotel, Elm Park Hotel. In our collection, we actually have a piece of that old elm tree. In 1903, George Wiederman and Michael O'Loughlin bought the property. O'Loughlin died in 1954, and George Wiederman ran it until the 1980s. He had 25 rooms, but no guests for many years. Rooms were small, without bathroom facilities and sewer facilities. The hotel burnt down in 1992. All the porches were removed, Victorian. The trolley was long gone when the dance hall building was built in 1932, and famous bands played there all summer long to keep throughput and equipment. Later, it was used as a boat storage. The hotel was well maintained as long as Mr. Weaver lived, fell into disrepair after his death. And here it is just before the 1992 fire. The dance hall burned down a couple of years later, and with another fire. Today there's an old concession stand that still was a reminder of the old days, but I'm sorry, I thought I had a photograph of that. Okay, now we're just have to move along. In the orchard near the Elm Harbor tents for the Trolley Club. You see it in the background there. The club came from Pittsburgh for 4 weeks every year. 125 men and their families. And they brought in a 12-piece band every night open to the public. Also, there's a photo of the group. And at one point, interesting in doing research, we found an article calling it the Colonial Club. And I thought, oh my gosh, people for years have been calling it the Colony Club. It was really the Colonial Club. And we found a newspaper article about the Colonial Club. And but then, as we did more search, every other article said the Colony Club. So apparently some reporter at one point just misunderstood the name of it and changed the Colony Club to the Colonial Club. But there's a picture with their sign, all in it. And a few more photographs of their tents. So the Hotel Manitou was west of the Elm Park and also is gone. The hotel opened in 1889 by Matthews and SAUERS and was purchased later by Bodenbach in 1891. The lobby of the hotel, there was interesting lights. It was direct current. It came from a private generator. But some people think they actually came from the electricity from the trolley tracks. Here's a view of the hotel after this trolley stopped running. A lot of the Victorian portions were removed, but a larger addition restaurant was added. And a story from the Odenbach family says that one of their ancestors went to Manitou Springs, Colorado one year, and he liked the name. And so he came back, and that's why he called his hotel the Hotel Manitou. Who knows if the story is true or not. But here's the Hotel Manitou a few years later, with one of the picnics. And just happened to have a piano with them. You can buy a lunch for $1 or $1.50. And a postcard from the hotel. A small concession stand, both in the center of the beach area for hot dogs and soft drinks. Quite a collection of bicycles on this special outing in front of the Manitou Hotel. Notice the high wheel type bikes were still popular, but were being overtaken by the safety bikes. So we can tell that this photograph was taken between 1885 and 1890. The tent was the Reese brothers. They got a merry-go-round. Al Skinner and a young George Weeder both helped run that place for a quarter a day. They kept the slots filled with rings that people grabbed as they went around and grabbed the brass ring. The merry-go-round was moved to Watona Beach, but was hard to trace beyond that and has basically disappeared. The Skinner Marina at the bottom was the main place for beach and boat rentals. The boy and girl on the right is Al Skinner, later became sheriff of Monroe County, and his sister Anna. 2022 view of Manitou Beach, at the time the automobile had taken over as the best means of personal transportation, but also caused the end of the trolley. 3 years later, the trolley ended its operation in 1925. Today, Manitou Beach looks like this. This is a private home, bigger than all the hotels that were there. Another view of the place today. A few years ago, it was up for sale. They tried to get $2.5 million, but finally lowered it to $1.3 million. A couple views of it. In 1966, the former employees, passengers, and friends gathered for what we think is the last time. They had been gathering for yearly to remember those Manitou trolley days. It was an opportunity to swap stories of the old days with the men who manned the cars and the folks, passengers for many seasons. You'll see long forgotten pictures of the gay area of the lakeshore when you come to our dinner, ladies. And that was in 1964, pretty much the end of the line for everybody. So I'm going to end of the line here. I want to thank in memory of Ed Spellman, who originally did a 35mm slideshow in 1970 of this. And when I got the slides and the narrative, half the narrative said, well, you people remember this, you people remember that. Well, in 1970 they did, but in 2020 we don't. So this is all the photographs and stories we have of what it was like and what it is today. So I want to thank you. Sorry I can't join you in person. I would have enjoyed your cookies and lemonade. If there's any questions, I'll try to answer the best I can. Okay?
Thank you, Bill. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask Bill? And I'll share it with him because my voice is...
Stop sharing the screen here.
Yeah, so we can really see your face or your avatar, right?
Yeah, stop sharing.
There you are.
Okay.
There you are. Anyone have any questions? Yes.
So
Manitou Road
is named also because of the Colorado.
Yes. Bill, can I answer this one?
I don't know what the question is, but
she wants to know the origin of Manitou Road.
Well, you can answer it. Yeah.
Yeah, Bill and I were talking about this earlier. This was originally the Parma, Greece town line, because from the center line west is Parma, from the center line east is Greece. But when the Manitou Hotel went in, everyone called it the road to the Manitou. And then it became Manitou Road. Yeah. And what's interesting is one of the original founders of this church, the Hooper family, Joseph and Lydia had 7 children. The oldest son, Charlie, and the oldest daughter, Matilda, were both threatened with excommunication from the church because Charlie was caught playing checkers and Matilda was curling her hair and dancing somewhere. So we have a feeling that chances are either the DeMay Hotel or someplace up on the lake is where they were hanging out. Their father was very upset because he had started the church that wanted to kick them out. And so there was a little trial that took place here in the church, and it was resolved, but then Joseph and Lydia packed up their belongings and went to Michigan and opened a bar. And they can play checkers and dance all night long. Yeah. Any other questions for Bill? Yes.
Did the trolley bring people in from out of the area, or was it mostly to bring people from the city down to the lake?
Okay, the question is, did the trolley bring people in from outside the area, or was it mostly from the city west and then back into the city?
Well, it was probably mostly city. We did have a group from Pennsylvania every year, and most of those were hotels. In fact, the one that my grandmother had was actually leased for a whole summer to the American or the Amalgamated Clothing Workers. Whether people came from all over, we don't know. It was probably mostly local people. Who knows? But people stayed. I don't know who these people were, but some of these people stayed there all summer long. They must have jobs, but I don't know. A lot of, especially like New York City, people just moved out of the city in the summertime. They went up to the Catskills or the Adirondacks or whatever. So this was a place to come in the summertime if you lived in the city.
Awesome. Any other questions? All right, can we give Bill a hand and wish him well?
See this?
Yes. Can you all wave at Bill? He wants to see the crowd. All right. All right, thank you, Bill. I hope you feel better.
Your camera there. Did you record this?
I don't know, did we?
It'll be on Facebook.
Yes, we did, and it'll be on Facebook.
I got a question.
Oh, we do have one more question. Hang on.
Where are the last remaining structures at Manitou Beach?
The last remaining structures on Manitou Beach. I think there is a barn there, isn't there? A small barn?
There's an ice cream stand too. I thought I had a photograph of it. But I'm sure the ice cream stand doesn't go back to the trolley days.
There are some.
There,
I have seen the pylons there. The pylons are still there.
some of them are still there.
Yeah.
Most were cleaned out when they did the Corps of Engineers did the project to open up the bay.
Yeah, good question. Anything else? All right, time for a snack. Thank you, Bill.
I'm gonna miss the snacks. I gotta come over and see you maybe next week when I'm healthy and save a few cookies for
All right, we will throw them in the freezer.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Have a good night.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody says thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
All right. Okay, folks. The fellowship hall is at the end of this long hall. Please make yourself comfortable out there. There's lots of chairs.